Okay, we should be live, hopefully. Just checking some things first. So I might look a bit weird in the beginning. Okay. Okay, let's see if this works. Just gonna share the link. So I will be streaming for 1 or 2 hours. Let's see. I'm not sure about the specifics yet. I will be going through the same course materials that we've been going through, and yeah, I'm just one more double checking if I can. So you don't see my mouse, my cursor. That's not good. That's not good at all. Let's see if I can figure that out. Sorry about this. In the beginning, it's gonna take me a while to get used to the streaming, so it's gonna take a moment. Let's see. Okay. No, that's not what I really wanted to do. Just gonna remove that. Okay. Oh well, maybe today we will not be using the cursor then, or then I need to change my settings a bit. So I think it's important to have the cursor so I can point to things. Maybe not that one. Okay, let's just go without the cursor. I'll be highlighting things as I go. So this week we've been going through basics of JavaScript programming, just the variables, typing, operators, arithmetic, and value comparisons with some of you, and a brief history of JavaScript. And on the right, you see my Visual Studio Code editor. It's the same one, same file that we had open earlier. We went through the basic development tooling here. So this part is the file, the text editor, and on the left you can see the file tree. Here I can search through different files. Let's say I want to find the word script. It tells me all the locations that contain script. And as you can see, it shows me two responses, two results, even though I only have one line. That's because on the same line, the word script is mentioned twice. And then we have source control, but as this folder is not under Git or any source control, there's nothing here showing that showing any file changes or anything like that. This is the run and debug window. For this class we don't need this, so I'm not gonna go through this. But in later parts, later in your software development career, you might need this part as well. And here you can find extensions, and it will show you what you have installed, and you can find different kinds of extensions. There should be a button here for showing popular extensions, but we can also search for them. So just add popular, and it will show you the most popular. So for example, Python seems to be the most popular with 42 million installation. Then C++, then Jupyter Notebook, ESLint. This is a really good tool, really good extension for JavaScript developers. It's often used in combination with Prettier. So these two, The first one will check that your code follows certain rules, certain coding styles, for example. And this extension makes the code pretty, and you can configure it prettier to use ESLint configuration. So when you save files, for example, it will automatically format it to be nice and clear. And for example, we have the live server that is part of the recommendation for this class, but not mandatory. And all different kinds of extensions. For example, GitLens is a popular one with software developers as well, giving you more Git functionality into your browser, into your text editor. But yeah, today we are mostly interested in writing some code. So let me just close this one. So I have opened this hello.html in the text in the browser here, and as you can see, this only has one line of code. We can add more lines of code to this, and you remember the emmet from Patrick's classes. So we can type in exclamation mark and then press enter, and it will automatically fill the document. Then we can copy this, move it here where it actually belongs. Semantically, its script tag belongs into the head, but for performance reasons, it's often added into the end of the body because the JavaScript file itself, this hello.js, it might have some functionality that expects some elements in the DOM to exist. But let's just keep it there for now. We don't need to know a lot more about that at this point. And here is my hello.js, and you remember this from the class. So you can see here we have hello world, and then we have hey you all. And if you look at the development tools here, you will see these two lines. And I'm going to close this so you'll see how I can reopen this. So wherever you are at your browser, when you right click, you will see this menu. On the bottom of this menu you will see inspect. It will open up the tooling, and then we go to the console. I'm just checking if there's any comments anywhere at this point. If there's no comments, I'm gonna continue. I'm really sorry about the lack of cursor. I'm gonna figure it out later for the next stream, how to do it. Okay. So let's continue with the course material. So we covered a bit of the code editor. It's made by Microsoft. It's not Visual Studio IDE. It just has a similar branding. It has wide extension support. It's lightweight, and you can install it on any platform. Good documentation, go through that. And lots of JavaScript developers use it, and other developers as well, but especially JavaScript developers. And these course material have also been made with Visual Studio Code. So here we can see the basics. We went through these in the class, so I'm not gonna repeat these. You will learn these keyboard shortcuts as you use it. And I've already used some of it here, like Command S to save, for example. We have these keyboard shortcuts here as well. And whenever you're coding, please make sure that your console tab is open. And the material contains lots of console log calls, so those calls will be visible in the console tab. All the modern browsers will have some sort of development tools, and I've linked instructions on how to open developer tools in different browsers. And for this stream, for example, I'm using this live server by Ritwik Day. So if we go to the Visual Studio Code, I can just right click here, and the first menu item is the live server menu. Oh, I don't think Ops is showing up those menus. That's not good. At least it's showing the highlights of when I highlight the text. Yeah, like I said in Teams, the first stream will have lots of hiccups, lots of issues, and these were some of the issues that came up, and I'm surprised that the streaming software doesn't really work as I thought it would work. But I will figure it out for the next streams. So, JavaScript is a programming language which was originally built for the browsers in 1995 by Brendan H. for Netscape, later standardized as ECMAScript in 1997, and has since gained a lot of popularity. In the beginning, it was just a script kiddie language for a small programmer population. And we will be using ES6, so the modern JavaScript. So we won't be looking at legacy stuff. We will be looking at const and let and for loops and all this nice functionality. So let's jump into the actual content right now. So variables. A variable is name storage for data. So you can store whatever data in a variable. So I'm gonna just create a variable here called const my variable equals 1. So that's a variable. A variable can have any kind of content. I can have my name as a string. I can have my admin status, for example. I am admin equals true. Or if for some reason I am not an admin anymore, it's false. And then if I don't define a value to a variable, so I just initialize an empty variable. So I'm initializing my empty variable for later use. Now this is same as undefined. So this variable is undefined because there's no content for this. Nothing has been defined. But as soon as I define something to it, now it's not undefined. Now it's the value of 0. And now it's a string. Even though there's nothing inside here in the string, it is an defined value. So empty string is not to be mixed, not to be thought of as an undefined. It is a value. It is a string with the length of 0. So if I would say my empty variable dot length, I would get 0. I don't know where my cursor is going. So if I open the console and I console log this, my variable content, and I save it, and I go here and reload, you see, okay, now it says that live reload is enabled. That's nice. So now whenever I save, the browser will update. That's good. So my variable content, it says, oh, I took the wrong variable. My empty variable, now I got an error. My empty variable, so it says there's no content on it, it's empty. If I put in type of in front of it, you will see that it's a string. I can check the length of the variable by calling my empty variable dot length. I'm going a bit too far now from the basics, but just to show you that the empty variable is not undefined. It always has some content on it. But if I would comment this out, you would see, first of all, this is now undefined. The type of this variable is undefined because nothing has been defined. And I also get this kind of an error here. So you might, in future, you might see a lot of errors like this. Cannot read properties of undefined, or cannot do something of undefined, or of null. So when you read this error, you can see that it points to you're trying to read a property of an undefined variable, of an undefined value. So here Chrome tells me that I'm trying to read length here. And Chrome will also give me the exact line number where that source code is. And then I can click that line and it should open, if I'm lucky enough. Yes, it opens the sources tab with that value. But I'm going ahead again a bit, so sorry about that. I'm just checking if there's any comments. Nothing, no questions, everything is clear. That's good. So I cannot read an undefined variable's content. What I can do, if I remove the dot length and save, now you will see that length, well then text length here is incorrect now, but you will see that the value of this is undefined here, and it's also in different color, it's in gray. So nothing has been defined on this variable. But variable is it's a place where you store data, and you can define variables with two different ways. One is with const, as we had here as well, and the other way is let. So the difference is between const and let is that the const is for constant values which will not change, and let is for values that will change or might change. Okay. And if you remember, JavaScript has keywords that are reserved words. Sometimes it's called reserved keywords that you cannot use in variable names or function names, but we will go to functions later. Here you can see a list of these words. So you cannot use these as a variable name. I know, like using super would be fun, or this could be fun. But yeah, there's some limitations on what you can use. And different programming languages will have their own list of reserved keywords. Sometimes they are same, like if keyword is pretty much always reserved. Okay. And because JavaScript is a loose and dynamic language, we can change values from one type to another type. So a string, this is string, is different type than a number, and this is a number. So I'm gonna define a variable with the keyword let, and this is gonna be called my stuff. And first I'm gonna just say it's a string with the content hello. I'm gonna change the tab here. It's a string with the content hello, and I'm gonna console log this at this point. So notice how I first, when I'm doing console logs, I'm putting a string first. That's because when I'm programming, I'm doing a lot of console logs, and if I don't define a string, a unique string, I don't know which log will be which. And you will notice if you just do console log and then variable names, that you will have lots of logs without any idea like where they're actually from. The browser will tell you the lines where they're coming from, but it's usually easier to put in some sort of name that will help you locate where that console log is. Okay, I'm gonna continue now with adding the my stuff variable here. And as I log this, you will see it's hello. And now I can change this to a number. Let's say it's 10. And I'm gonna save now. So you see my stuff is still hello. It doesn't change because the console log execution, the console log line is before this line. So the line 24, it has no knowledge of the variable being changed later. But now, as I console log this again, you will see that the variable contents change. And you will also see here that it's in blue. Hopefully you can see that, meaning that it's a number. And I can also define it as a boolean. And let's see what the color will be. Boolean is not, oh, sorry, my stuff. So it will be in blue and it says true. So as you can see, I can change the value of the variables in while I'm executing these. And now what I did was I went to the specific line and I pressed Command C, which will be on Linux and Windows, it will be Control C. And notice that I did not select any text. I'm copying the whole line, Control C, Control V. So copy and paste. And now what I'm doing here is I'm gonna check the type of this variable. So you will see it's a type of string. And notice also how I don't have to put space here. As I put a comma here, the development tools will know that I'm adding a second value to console log, so it will know to put spaces between the words, which is nice. I'm gonna copy paste all of these console logs just so that we can have a look at the type of these values. And as I save, we will see that first it is a string. When we change it to a number, it changes to a type of number, Boolean, and that's the type of Boolean. Okay. So continuing forward, so we've gone through variables, changing variables with loose and dynamic typing. We've gone through how to set variables with keyword let and keyword const. And notice that we cannot use spaces in variable names. So if I go back here and I try to add a space here, my space variable equals true. Well, first of all, notice how my editor is complaining. That is a good thing. And as I save, you will see an error. And even though this line was on the end of the source code file, this line, it's still blocking the execution of the whole script. So we need to fix this. We cannot have spaces here. So there are two ways of fixing this. One is using underscores, and the second one would be to use a capitalized letter. Both of these will work. You can capitalize these however you want, but please don't mix underscore and capitalized space. I will open a Wikipedia article here, for example, kebab case. So this is called naming convention. So please select either kebab case or was it snake case or underscore case. Let's see. So we will have some examples here. So camel case. I think there was kebab case somewhere here. Yes, kebab case is the one with the normal dash. Snake case is the one with the underscores. Camel case is the one with the words capitalized. But notice how we don't capitalize the first word, only the words following that. There are locations where you have to, if you're following the correct conventions, you capitalize the first letter as well. And those are, for example, for classes or constants. Not const, but constant values usually are like capitalized totally. But classes are with capitalized first letter as well. But what we will follow here on this course, it is either camel case or snake case. It is up to you. Please don't mix them. Just use one of the other. So, but what I've done here, as you can see, I've used camel casing on my variable names, because that feels more comfortable for me. But it's up to you to choose which one you use. In JavaScript, maybe camel casing is a bit more used convention. And special characters cannot be used in variable names. So for example, I cannot use a smiley in my variable name. So if I save this, it says unexpected or invalid token. Good. So each of these are their own statements. Statements usually end up at a semicolon, but JavaScript doesn't really care about semicolon, so you can have semicolon or you can leave it out, but I would prefer that you have semicolons on this class. If you choose not to use them, please read this article, just in case. Or even if you choose to use them, it's good to have a look at this article as well. And then comments. Well, we've already had some comments here. As you can see, the editor shows the comments in green. I'm going to do a multi-line comment here. So it was / asterisk and asterisk and /. So how this comment works is it starts and ends with the slash. And now I can write how many lines of code comments as I want. So and the JavaScript engine will not execute these comments at all. And like for example here, you notice I've used single line comments twice. That's because first I added this comment, then I decided to comment out the whole line. Commenting out means that we hide lines of code from the JavaScript engine, so it won't execute some values. I can remove the comments, and now it should show my variable content as the string here. But if I comment it out again, that should change to undefined. Good. Just gonna check one thing. Yes. Okay. That's commenting. So comments are super useful. At beginning, please use comments a lot. They will help you understand the code you're writing. They will help you understand concepts that you're learning. And they will help me understand what you were thinking when you were coding. And you can comment like if you're working on some problem set and you cannot get it to work completely correct, you can leave comments to that code saying that this line of code should work like this, but for now it's working incorrectly. And then I can read the comment and see that, okay, you've tried to get it working, and you've had some issues, and I can then give feedback to you personally on OMA or wherever. And yes, so use comments. All right, next types of the variable value and values. So we can have multiple different types, but one variable can only have one type. For example, we can have strings, we can have numbers, we can have a Boolean type, we can have an undefined type, and then we can have object, function, null, and symbol. And objects and functions will be, we will go through them later on. So I opened the MDN link for typing. So you will see at first, you will see primitive values. So these will be like the lowest levels of the language itself. So we have the Boolean type, either true or false. We have the null type, that's a new one for you. We have the undefined type. We have the number type. Big int means that big integer, so it's a number type that supports even bigger numbers than the normal number type. And we have the string type, that's already familiar to you, and the symbol type. And then we have objects. So we've gone through this one, the Boolean, undefined, numbers, and strings. It's if you want to look at these in more detail, I highly recommend you do that. Just there's the link on the course material for this page, and you can go through it. Null is interesting type, but we'll go through that later on. So Boolean can be either true or false. Well, null can be only null. Undefined, nothing has been assigned for the value. Then we have the numbers. So here you can see the limits of the number type. And so if it's bigger than this or smaller than this, you will see some interesting issues. And then we will have infinity and minus infinity and not a number. So you might see none sometimes, and that just means not a number. Like this documentation has lots of good pointers for you to look at, so I highly recommend you read this. And as you can see here, they mention like ECMAScript 2015, so that's familiar from the JavaScript introduction part. So here you have some interesting results as well. And here you can also see that they also use in the documentation the same convention that we have on the course material. So this is the input, and that's what the input returns, so that's the output. Okay. So similarly to here, input, and as I'm checking the value of A, I get 13. This is the output. So at this moment, I will open console log here as well, even though I had it open on the second tab as well. So the equal sign, the assignment operator, that's already familiar to you. As you can see, we've used it a lot on assigning values to variables. So that's the most important operator, because you will be using that a lot. So actually I'm gonna close this console, I don't need it here. So let's do some basic mathematics here. So let's say I now have this hello variable here. So I'm going to create a new variable called a, for example. And I will use hello as the primary value here. And I will increment it by 1. And let's see. So a is now 2. Then if I try to increment the value of a, you will see an error here, because this is a constant variable. So I'm gonna define a with let keyword. So now you can see that the value of a is 3. If I define, there's two ways of incrementing the value. So one is through a++, and one is by defining the value for variable a by using something like this. So we can increment a with 1 by calling by assigning the value of a to a and add +1 into it. So now it's 4. Or we can use the shortcut increment. So all these 3 are equal now. So all of these increment the value a by 1. Okay, so if we have a++ and we decide that instead of incrementing the value with just 1, I want to increment it by 10. Well, how do I do that? Should I copy paste this ++ many times? Well, no. So you will see the issues there. So what I do is I define the increment like this. So I will have the plus and equal and then 10. So this will increment the variable a by 10. And as you can now see, the value of a is 15. And I can do different operations as well. So let's first do a small division here. So I will divide a with 2, or I can use the shortcut like this. And now I want to increment a sorry, I want to multiply a with 5. And now it's multiplied. Or I can multiply it by 5 using the shortcut. If I want to decrement the value, I can say a minus minus. So now you can see it's 92. If I copy paste this line again, it should go to 91. And I can also decrease the value by assigning the value. So a equals a minus 1. Or if I want to, I can use the shortcut again. And let's say instead of, no, sorry, that should be a minus. So if I don't want to minus only 1, I want to minus 1000. So there you go. And now I'm going to define value b to be the value of a. I'm going to console log b as well. Now you can see that b equals the same value as a. And after this console log, I'm going to do some assignments to these values. For example, let's say that I will reset a to be 50. So as you can see, the console logs here, neither one of them changed at all, because the values that I define after these console logs, they do not reflect back. And now, if I console log a here, notice how I decided to use a different string here, so I can know which one is the first console log and which is the second console log for the same variable. So if I save this, you would see, so now A is 50, and if I console log B, should B be 15 as well? Let's see. No, B is minus 900. That's because the changes to variable A do not reflect back to B, even though we've defined that B equals A. Now, if I want to synchronize these, I have to define A to be the value of B. So, console log B. I'm gonna improve this. B after sync. And now B is 50. Also, if I make changes to B, and console log A, so now you can see that A after B has been set to 1000. A is still 50 as we defined here. That's because the changes that I do to B variable do not synchronize to A. So they are in their own scope, in their own namespace in a way. Just a second, I'm gonna see if there's any comments anywhere. No comments, that's good. Maybe I don't have anyone viewing. Okay. So those were the basic arithmetic operations. We also have exponentiation, we have modulus. So I'm gonna do exponent here. So I'm gonna define value C is 2 to the power of 8. I'm gonna console log C. So we can see C is 256 now. I'm gonna create variable called D. I'm gonna use the math library that comes with JavaScript. And as you can see, the editor will autocomplete and recommend me these values. So this is short for power. I will select that. So the math power will take two values, x and y. So the base value and then the exponent. So let's say 2, and now you can see the comment changed as I put comma there. So the exponent value, and let's put 8. And I'm gonna console log this, console log D. So as you can see, both of these values are the same. So we can do exponential mathematics using 2 stars, 2 multipliers, or we can use math power. Math power is a bit longer to write. It might be a bit more clear what it does. And you will see in code bases, you will see math power a lot more than this syntax. But it's good to know that this syntax and this syntax, they are the same. It's up to you to choose which one you want to use. I had been writing code for a very long time before I found out about this syntax. And sometimes I use it because it's a lot faster to write. So let's say that I have a long equation. Notice that I cannot use the keyword long stuff. Equals, let's say, 1 plus 2 plus 3 multiplied by math pow 2 to the power of 4 plus 5, for example. The different way of doing this would be using the 2 stars here, so it would be a bit easier. Maybe it could be easier way. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 times 2 to the power of 4 plus 5. So let's see, are these two equivalent? Yes. And as you can also see, my editor is now wrapping these two in different lines, even though they are almost the same length with the variable names. That's because the math pow is taking a lot of space here, and it's a bit difficult to write here. And let's say that I want to add another one here, for example. It takes me a bit to write this instead of doing like this. Okay, we went through strings. So we can do string concatenation two ways. First, I'm going to show you the classical, the old way of doing it. That's just because you're going to see lots of old JavaScript code when you search blogs and Stack Overflow, when you join software projects and all of that. So you will see the old way of doing it, and then you can, depending on the project and case, you can, for example, refactor them to be to use new ways of doing it. So first, I'm gonna put first and last name. And now I'm gonna create a new variable that will have first name and last name concatenated together. I will use the plus sign, which is a mathematical notation, but when JavaScript notices that it's using strings, or at least one string, it will try to do string concatenation. So full name equals first name. Notice how I had first name as lowercase, and I pressed enter, and the editor changed the formatting to be camel case. Okay, now plus last name, and if I console log this, it should show my name. But that looks a bit more like username. So I'm gonna add a space. So how I add space is by concatenating another string with space in it. Cool. So that's one way of doing it. You can use numbers on your variable names, but if my memory serves correctly, you cannot use them in the beginning. So now I'm gonna use the better way of concatenating strings. So I will use backticks, 2 of them, and then dollar sign brackets or curly braces with the first name. Then I will add space and last name. Console log full name 2. So this is, I'm gonna actually hide this, so I can hide the file tree by pressing Command B. So we have more real estate for the editor itself. Okay, so for this example, it's pretty simple. These are pretty simple examples, so it doesn't make much sense to use one or the other. But let's say that we have multiple strings that we are concatenating. Now, as you see, we have lots of repetition here, lots of point of issues, lots of point of possible bugs, and we want to avoid that. So instead of doing this sort of classical concatenation, if we use the template literal, which is the new way of concatenating strings, you will see that there's no need for many plus signs, no need for double quotes or anything. It will be a lot simpler. And if I add it one more time, yes, now the strings are equal here. And I can actually verify by using value comparison, to see if these are actually equal. So let's see, console log, is my full name equal with old and new way. So full name equals full name 2. It says true. Good. And notice I had 2 equal signs. So one equal sign here. That means assignment. So we assign value to variables. And 2 means that we compare values with each other. So this compares if full name equals full name 2. And in the material you might remember that we have 3 as well. So now with 3 equal signs we will compare if full name and the type of full name equals to full name 2 and the type of full name 2. And even though I created these 2 variables using different methods, they are both still strings. So this comparison matches. Gonna see if there's any comments. Nope, no comments. That's okay. Okay, let's continue. Then if we add numbers together with strings, we get weird functionality. So I'm going to define sum here equals 6 plus 8 . So if I would want to have 6 plus 8 to be 14, what I would have to do, I would have to typecast the value 6 to be number 6. And now we can see it is actually 14. So we can typecast values from value to one from another. So I can do this as well. So now I'm typecasting string 6 to number 6 and number 6 to string number 8 to string 8. And the sum will be 68. Well, that's not optimal. So now we have 14. We've went through these two already. And let's see, I'm gonna do a comparison here. I'm not gonna create new variables for this. So I'm just gonna compare if sum equals 14, true. Let's see, sum equals string 14, that's true as well. I'm gonna put a comment here. So sum is 14, but now as I put 3 equal signs, it says false because sum is the type of number and string 14 is type of string. If I remove the string, it should say true. That's good. And let's now jump right into the ternary operator. So ternary operator, as we have here, it checks this value, it compares, it does a comparison here before the question mark, and if this value evaluates to true, then the first part of the ternary operation will be executed. So the first part meaning everything between the question mark and the colon. And if the comparison value is false, then everything after the colon will be executed. So where that would be useful, for example here, I don't want to have the word true there. I want to have something that makes more sense for humans. So I'm gonna add question mark. So that's like a question, like, does sum equal 14? Well, yes, it does. And then I have like, no, it does not. So now we have like something that looks a bit more English, something that looks a bit more human. Does the, okay, I'm gonna improve this a bit. Does the sum of 6 plus 8 equal 14? Yes, it does. But if I put 14 into string, it says no, it does not. So as you can see, if this statement is true, then the first part, this part will be executed. If the statement is false, then this part is executed. I'm gonna change this to number and let's continue. So is 14 greater than 15? So how we compare this is with the greater than sign. I'm gonna use, oh, I forgot the comma there. I'm gonna use the ternary operator and say yes or no. So as we can see, 14 is not bigger than 15. If I want to see if 14 is bigger or equal to 15, I can add a equal sign here. I have to change this to be 15, so now it should say yes. And if I remove the equal sign, so this is greater or equal to 15, so I'm gonna remove that. So 15 is not bigger than 15. I'm gonna change this to be 15. Good. Okay, next part is 10 less than 9. Let's see. 10 less than 9 question mark. Well, yes, it is. Or no, I don't think so. So it is not 10 is not less than 9. But if I switch this around, now 10 is bigger than 9. But then I have to, if I change this statement, then I have to be really careful and I have to look into the first statement, the true branch, as we call it, or then the false. Do these make sense now, especially with this context of this? So I would have to change this to be greater than 9. Well, yes, it is. But I'm gonna go back, so Command Z. Good. So what do we have next? Okay, let's do AND statements. True and true equals to. So true and true equals to true. I'm gonna copy this line and I'm gonna say true and false equals to false. Good. I'm gonna copy this line now. False and false equals to false. So even though these two are now both the same, this is false and this is false, but because both of them are false, this comparison does not apply, because this is looking for both of these to be true, so that doesn't apply. So let's use logical OR next. So true or true equals to. So we can have this in my keyboard. It is Command Alt and 7. True or true equals to true, as we can see here on the bottom. If I copy paste this line and I say true or false equals to, again it equals to false. So now you can see that true or false equals to true, even though true and false equals to false. That's because we are looking for either side of this OR statement. So this is like if this applies or this value applies. One of these statements has to be true for the end result to be true. And if I change the first true to be false, and I change this comment here, so false or false, so we can see that false or false equals to false. Because neither one of these statements are true. I can I can change the extend this a bit. So false or true equals to that equals to true. That's because one of these statements equals to true. And you can have as many or and statements as you want. You can combine them however you want. So let's look at this combination 1, for example. We can have true and false or true. This will be true because this is true. So this or is checking if this side, these two are true, or this is true. Or if I want to check that, I can use the braces here to make sure that this is one statement and this is one statement. So that's still true. Okay. And then I can combine different kind of comparisons here. So let's say and 100 is smaller than 500. That is still true. And then I can put in like let's say false is not true. So you will see that you can combine these however you want. Well, at this moment this statement does not make much sense, but it shows you that it is possible to combine stuff. And we can define some blocks with the braces. So let's say true and false and 1 equals 2. That's true. And let's see console log combination 2. We can have like true and 5 is smaller than 1. Well, that's false. Okay. Or 5 is bigger than 1. That's true. Here, these characters for this one are unnecessary, but we can have them here as well. So let's say what kind of combination I could do where it makes more sense to have those. I can't figure out something in the spot right now. Can't think of something. But there are times when it makes sense to use that. Okay, let's continue forward. And then we have the logical not. So, the logical not is the exclamation mark, and then we put something after it. So should this be true? Well, it says false. That's because we are negating. This is not, so we can write it like not true. But if we say not false, it should say true, because this is not false now. It's the opposite of that value. Where that comes in useful is in if statements. If true, and if we want to check that the other branch works, I'm going to explain this in a second. So it's true. So here is an if statement that compares the value of true. This statement checks that if the statement is, or the if keyword checks that if the statement is true or not. And now we've made the statement so that we check that if it's not true, we go to this code block. And if it is true, because Boolean can only have two values, we will go to this block. So let me change this a bit. I'm going to create a variable called actually we have variable called my name. So if my name equals Juha, so now we can see that my name is Juha. So again, I can wrap this into braces and I can put the logical OR here. So now I will check that this statement does not apply. So you can see I am not Juha for now. And I can also put the exclamation mark here to see if my name is not Juha. But let's say I'm gonna use the name Peter here. If my name is not Peter, then I am Juha most likely. So that's the not operator, and we can use it here as well. And then we can use the, so when we're comparing the value and the type of these two values, we can use the three equal signs. But if I want to check that it is not the same value and not the same type, or it's not the same value or not the same type, I put the exclamation mark here. So now it says that if my name is not Juha, not Peter, then I am Juha. Else I am not Peter. And now we have to change this a bit, because it says I am Juha, so it has to say I am Peter. Maybe we'd have done that before already. Okay. So that was the basics of if statements, basics of variables, basics of booleans, basics of comparing values. And like statements like these don't make much sense here, but they make a lot more sense when we put these inside an if statement. So I'm just going to copy that. And is there an issue here? What the issue is? Okay, it was missing the braces, curly braces. So if this statement is true, then we will go to this scope, this function scope, not function scope, the if statement block, if statement scope. So I can say console log, we are here, and this was true. And I can say else console log we are somewhere else. So if I put false here and true, but because we have that. Okay, so I'm gonna show you where the braces would be useful. So I'm gonna wrap these. So this statement and these statements are run separately. So I'm gonna put this into its own block. So let's say we are somewhere else now because these statements do not apply. Let's see if I can remove this false. Okay, it says we are here now. So now we had a useful case to check that this has to match equal true, this has to be equal true, and this has to equal true. And as you can see, this line is now grayed out. The editor knows that, okay, this code will not be reached because this statement will never be true. So I'm gonna set up a variable, const cool variable equals Juha. And I'm gonna set that here as well. Now it will show that, okay, this can be reached because it doesn't really know what the content of this variable might be. Cool. So these ors and ands and all of these comparisons, all of these are comparing values. They can be used in if statements, for example, and most commonly are used in if statements. What's next? Well, this is the part we ended up last time with the Mondays group and the Tuesday on the Wednesdays group. So maybe it is a good time for now to stop here as well, and I can continue streaming next week after we've gone through this in the courses as well. But here we have like if statements, different ways of doing if statements. We have if, we have else, if, and else. So if this condition is true, then all the code between these curly braces, curly brackets, will be executed. And this says that, okay, if the first statement is not true, then let's try this one. And if this statement is true, all of this will be executed. And this says, okay, if nothing on the top of this is true, then we will execute this like fallback statement. And you can add as many else if statements as you want. So you can have, let's say, 1,000 of them. So if false, then we can have else if false, equals true. These are the kind of if statements you would never do, but I'm gonna just use them in this context, and we'll get familiar with the Boolean types. We can have else if many times as we want. And if nothing of these value comparisons are equal, then we can say that, okay, else do something. So if we read this, it's like we're asking questions like, is this true? Oh, it's not true. Okay, let's try this one then. Is this true? No. Is this true? No. Well, how about this? Is this true? No. What about this? Is this true? No. Okay, I don't understand. Let's go here then. And we can do the same kind of logic with switch cases and or switch statements. And Visual Studio Code will propose me to do switch case. And if I press enter here, sorry, I have to. If I press enter here, it should autocomplete me with the basic structure with one case and default values. So what this means is this is like an this initializes the switch cases, switch statement, and it checks that if the value key, the key variable, which could be, for example, my name. This is the if statement kind of logic, or this is actually the else if statement. So if my name equals Juha, do something. Let's see what happens here. Well, my name is Juha with capital, so these if statements are case sensitive. So I'm gonna do 2 console logs here just to show it to you. So my name equals Juha, that should be true. And I'm gonna put 1 and 2. And if I put this into lowercase, it says false, because the content of my name variable is Juha with lowercase j. There are ways to go around this. This is again a bit outside of today's stream, but I'm gonna show it to you anyways. So we can change this to be lowercase, and that's it. Now, and I'm gonna change this to 3. Now you can see this is true. Cool. And when we do this sort of formatting, you always want to make sure that both of these values are lowercase, because this might come from a different variable called my variable, for example, and we don't really know at this point what's in it. So let's do lowercasing here as well, and we can do lowercasing in strings like this. As you can see, it's still true. If I uppercase this to be Juha, I'm yelling like my name and then yelling. It's still true because we converted this uppercasing to lowercasing. Okay, so here we see do something that applies, and the break means that we don't continue with these cases. So what we do here is so now you can see that as I break the case, it doesn't continue with the chain. But if I remove this, it might. So it does something with Peter, which is a bit silly that that also works. But yeah, you have to break this. There are, if you want to know more about switch cases, I recommend you read Wikipedia article or Google MDN switch. Check the Mozilla Developer Network documentation was for switch. Let's do that. And you will be able to find what it does, how it works, and all of that in detail. And when in documentation, when you have brackets inside here, that means that something is optional. For example, default is optional, and then the break inside default is optional. As you can see, there's brackets here and double brackets here. Okay. And if nothing matches, let's say, I'm just going to use which my name string, and then we are in the default case. Just gonna put semicolons here as well. And now we can see we are in the default case. That's because none of these cases matched. Because the string my name, it's not Juha, it's not Peter, so then it's something else. But if I copy, oh, the formatting is a bit funny now, sorry about that. I can change the configuration for that. Now it should not go to default anymore, and it shows do something with my name. And as you saw, as I copy paste, it breaks the formatting a bit. So I'm gonna press Command and comma. I can get to the settings. Then here, format on paste. Or format. There should be an option for formatting. I think it's this one. So let's see what happens now. Good. So now I fixed my editor so it doesn't format it weirdly. So now that I have multiple my names here, my name cases, you see that it only does do something with my name once, even though we have it multiple times here. That's because of this break. If I would remove this one, or if I would comment it out, you would see it double and 3 times. And what we can actually also do is if we have a couple of different cases where that could be true, we can add these cases like my name and that. Let's just bring back these breaks. and then like let's put case where it could be sun, and if I'm gonna change this to my name or sun. So now you can see, do something with my name or sun. We can remove these because we don't really need these. And if I change this switch value to be sun, it still matches. If I put space here, it won't match because this is really strict and it will check that there has to be space. If I change this to be my name, it should match. So this is kind of like else if. These are like else if, else if, else if, or you could think of like else if, or else if, or else if this. Okay. That's switch case. We have both of these in the materials as well. We went through type conversions here. And we can add JavaScript functionality to the website, web page. Well, we did that in the beginning. We have the script tag here, and we have the script tag here. So when the browser finds this, it will execute, it will download the hello.js, and it will execute the content of it. So we can verify that it downloads the content of hello by going to the network tab in your developer tools. Here you will be able to see hello.html and hello.js. So first the browser will connect to this hello.html because it's in the URL here. And now as I click here, you will see there's nothing in the preview, but if I click the response, you will be able to see similar JavaScript, similar HTML that's in the editor. And there's some code injected by the live server. And this WS means WebSocket, and it's by the live server extension by Visual Studio Code. And then we have the hello.js here as well. And we can see how much time it took, what's the size of these files. As we can see, we already have lots of JavaScript here. We have 4.2 kilobytes of JavaScript. So that's quite a lot of JavaScript here. It's normal to have many kilobytes, even megabytes at some point. Okay, I'm just gonna check if there's any questions. Nothing, nada. Cool. Okay. Yeah, it seems that the resolution on the stream is not optimal, so I have to figure that out. But I will try to figure that out for the next stream. Okay. Okay, I hope this was useful. Sorry for the technical issues in the beginning and the missing of my cursor and the bad resolution. But these are all points that I will try to address in before the next stream. So now we've covered the same content that we went through on the lectures, and we will be able to continue next week. I hope that there was someone watching this stream. I hope that there is someone watching the recording. It's fine if there's no one. It's all cool. Yeah. Until next time, I'm stopping the stream and have a good night. I restarted the stream just to test a resolution change. Let's see if it improved.